Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Want to boost revenue and attract new customers? Partner with Harvest Hosts, a free marketing platform generating $50 million annually for farms and small businesses. Connect with 250,000 travelers eager to support farms like yours by offering space for one RV overnight. No hookups needed. Our members will support your farm and you keep 100% of your revenue. Visit harvesthosts.com today. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. Today, my guests are Ben Stein and Alicia Brown, the co-owners of Edible Uprising Farm, a 1.5-acre no-till vegetable farm in Troy, New York. Since 2019, they've been growing over 250 varieties of vegetables and flowers. Their motto, everything with intention, guides their approach to farming, ensuring that every decision they make considers both short-term impact and long-term sustainability. Ben and Alicia, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. So I have been to Troy, New York a few times. Well, the Troy Farmers Market's there. We never actually did that farmers market, but we were about an hour 15, hour 20 north of you guys in Middle Granville. Is that where our first farm was?
Oh.
So yeah, I know that area quite well. It's kind of, I don't know if it's a dying town, but it's definitely not what it used to be.
Yeah. So, I mean, before coming to Troy to start this farm, we actually didn't know very much about it except for its reputation where, it has gone through some really hard times economically. During the Victorian era, it was really, it was one of the wealthiest cities in the country, and then really had an economic decline. And we didn't know much about it, but actually in the last maybe 5 years, there's been kind of a resurgence here, a lot of people moving up from New York City, and a lot of efforts from local businesses, the local government to make this a more desirable place to be. And so it's been fun to watch that.
Well, it used to be known as the Collar City, right? There was, they made collars. There's an iron and steel works. Wasn't this Troy Armories? Don't they still manufacture like barrels for like big guns?
Yeah, some stuff across the river in Watervliet. What Troy, the ironworks that Troy is known for is the Burden Iron Works, which was Henry Burden. During the Civil War, they made all the horseshoes.
Very cool.
There was a giant water wheel just couple hundred yards from where we are actually, and that's really what brought all the wealth, is that Henry Burden was making all the horseshoes for the Civil War.
Okay, so yeah, I'm back then. Yes, they needed those.
It was a really critical resource.
Yes. Okay. So then, industry there. So talk a little bit about how close to the city are you?
Yeah, so our farm is in the city limits of Troy. We're in South Troy. So we're like 2 miles from downtown Troy. The property we're on, it feels very rural when you're here. A lot of people see pictures of our farm and they're like, oh yeah, that's a rural farm. But actually, if you like just walk down the hill, you pop out on a like busy city street. And when you're at our farm, it's like there's sirens and yelling and there's a baseball game and a lot of action. So it's an interesting experience to be able to farm this like really intensive market garden farm, and feel like you're like on a rural property, but just a little ways away you're right in a city, which is unique.
You're close to the Hudson River.
Yeah, very close. Yeah, we're just up. There's a lot of elevation gain right on our side, so we're up on a hill. So because we're in South Troy, a couple miles to downtown Troy, and then also just about 5-6 miles to Albany, and the rest of the capital district is all pretty close. So we have access to some 350,000 people within about a 10-mile radius, which is pretty.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome, you guys. And then you are pretty close to the Burden Ironworks Museum. That's just right down the hill from you, basically.
Yep. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, okay, let's start at the beginning. What caused both of you to want to go into farming?
Well, I went to Green Mountain College in Vermont, so we'd actually met once before. I was up there at your other farm back in like 2009. I was in the sustainable ag program there, and got really interested in small farms. Food is what really brought me into it. I was kind of had a decision at that time going to either culinary school. I was baking before that, or go go and start growing food, and decided to go that route. So got my degree in sustainable ag and food systems from Green Mountain College, and then worked on a bunch of farms all around, doing all sorts of different things, until we kind of came to a point where we wanted to start something together. And then Alicia can tell her story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a background in art and design actually, but really through Ben, going up to Vermont and visiting his school and visiting his farm, I just became totally obsessed with gardening and farming, and just found myself wandering away from what I had gone to school for, and really being gravitated towards that. And so we just dove in and knew we wanted to start a farm together.
Yeah. And then coming to this property was sort of, we were around looking in Vermont at the time. We were living outside of Brattleboro, and I was working at Walker Farm. And we were like, okay, we really want to start a farm of our own. Trying to look for properties. It was everything was getting really expensive. We couldn't really find anything. And then through a friend of a friend, got connected with this spot over in Troy, which both of us, Vermont really was our home. We didn't want to go out. There's an arbitrary border at New York. It's definitely a different place. But we got connected with the landowner over here, who was looking for somebody to do something with this really small acreage. With my experience being at Walker, 20 some acres of veg and 25 greenhouses and bedding plant, the whole thing. I saw
It's intense.
It's intense. I mean, yeah, it's a whole thing.
Yes.
I learned, that's where I learned out, I learned so much.
Yeah. Jack is an incredible business person.
Absolutely, and an incredible grower. I mean, he just, I really learned a lot of what we do here is from him and from them over there. But so, I was going in, we were looking for larger pieces of property, because that was the direction I saw ourselves going in, was a more tractor-based, sort of conventional organic, and so when we came and saw this, little 1 acre field that's just been sitting there and was a meadow, we looked at first and we're like, we can't do that. Like, what's that? I know there's there are people doing it, but that's not what it's going to be. But then once we left after seeing it, like, wow, that, being so close to an urban center, being in a city, in a town that's really like a food desert, there's not a lot of good food around. We sort of left really curious about it, and decided to jump into it. Lease, it was a leasing situation.
Yeah, I mean, so many of the barriers to new farmers is like finding good farmland and then finding markets for their food. And we were butting up against that in a lot of the rural areas in Vermont that we were looking for. The cost of farmland was so high. How would we have any money to then build our farm after that purchase? And then also just in these rural areas, there isn't a huge population to support or to need the food that you're growing. And we really, really wanted to be able to grow food for a population where that was like really needed, and there was a clear gap there. And so when we started looking around this area of Troy, again, like Ben said, there's 300 plus thousand people in this area, and we were noticing there weren't very many small farms doing what we wanted to do. And so we were like, are we going to move to a city? This feels so strange. This feels so foreign after living in rural Vermont for so many years. And it was a really hard decision, but we decided to take the leap and start this farm on leased land, which in a city, which was completely opposite of what we imagined for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those things where you have this dream in your mind of exactly what's going on, and then all of a sudden that is you have to throw it out the window, but it's something else that can work.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, you know, being open to when things come at you. You know, if you're really rigid in your expectations, then it's really easy to miss amazing opportunities. And I think thankfully were able to be open to something that we weren't really looking for, you know.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about like what you guys grow, and then like some of the adjustments you made, because you came from a 20-acre, 25 greenhouse farm. So what was the kind of the big adjustment to kind of like just
Yeah, shrinking it all down.
yeah.
Yeah, so we grow, you know, when we first started, we were about an acre growing all vegetables and doing a cut flowers. We were growing, you know, again, 250 varieties of different things. Um, Trying to do that on 1 acre is a really tight, is really tight. So it required a lot really tight management. And that's really the biggest thing that I brought from the larger scale was like, okay, how do we take the efficiencies and the things of a larger scale vegetable farm and bring it in and really just have it be so intensely managed. So, you know, we started out with 12 blocks on the farm, all 50-foot beds and 15 beds to the blocks. And, you know, the production plan was just like we followed that. We did all the thinking in the spring and then just, executed the plan. And, you know, now we just wrapped up our 6th year and, now it's getting to a point where we've got that rotation, we've got it all down that, it feels like we've kind of figured it out. But, building more greenhouses every year, even on this small acreage here, we're now up to 4 greenhouses, high tunnels, trying to push the season extension as much as we can. And again, a lot of that stuff I learned from Walker, which is great.
And you could say it's unusual for a farm of our scale to be growing so much variety, but it was kind of out of necessity. When we first came to Troy, we were like, of course, we're gonna be part of the farmers market and we'll grow more like quick turnover stuff, more
Correct.
typical of
Yeah.
what you see. And we were rejected from the farmers market the first year we came here. And so we were like, uh-oh, okay, we need to figure something else out. So we just, we knew we wanted to have a CSA, but we also knew, okay, if we're going to have a farm stand, we need to offer a lot of variety. And
Yeah.
so it was pretty critical from early on that we grew a ton of variety to keep our CSA more diverse and interesting, but also if we were going to sell anything retail, people weren't going to just come to our farm to buy radishes and turnips and carrots. If they were going to come to our farm and get a variety of vegetables, we wanted them to be able to walk away with everything they needed to cook. And so that required a really, really complex, really well thought out production plan. It's worked really well. We're still not in the farmers market, mostly by choice, because it's worked so well to have so much variety for people to be able to seek us out and get everything they need.
Yeah, and we also get like to start. We were saying, okay, we need X number of dollars per 50-foot bed in order to reach.
Correct. Yes.
And so, thinking about growing winter squash and potatoes and onions, they don't meet that. And so, saying, okay, what can we put in the ground before the winter squash? And once the winter squash came out, can we squeeze in something at the end? But, just like Alicia said, we knew we had to grow those things. And so did have to make some sacrifices to say, okay, those beds up there aren't going to make it. But if we take the accumulation of everything else, are we meeting our goals? And, because people are coming to us and they're only coming to us, which obviously is different than a farmer's market, we're like, okay, for each customer that comes to us, how do we maximize the amount? Like, we don't want to just come and spend $3, $4 on a bunch of radish. Okay, how can we have the full diversity of different things where they're getting a bouquet of flowers and they're getting a squash and potato, along with the greens and everything else, so that people walking out the door are spending more than, $10, $15.
So you have an on-farm store?
Our first year we did.
Okay.
So again, we were rejected from the farmers market. We were like, okay, well, we'll just set up a little farm stand here.
Yeah.
It didn't go well. So we're, on a dead end road. It's
No
really
foot
hard
traffic.
to find the farm. People
Yes.
aren't driving by. And
Yes.
so, our CSA members, when they came to pick up their shares, they would buy stuff. But it was clear it wasn't working well.
Yeah.
And so our second year, I built of what we call a virtual farm stand, where every week we take inventory of everything that's in the field, we translate it into our virtual farm stand, and CSA members and the public can place orders through the farm stand, and then they either come and pick up the produce or we deliver it locally. And it took a fair amount of work to build this, but it's been a kind of shocking success. It's been really, really amazing. I think it's
Yeah.
really convenient for people to get on, be able to see everything that we have and really easily add it to their carts. And it's been great for us because it means we harvest to order everything that comes through. So
Yes.
we have very little waste, nothing left over at the end of harvests. And we also have data of every single thing we sold that year, which has been really amazing to be able to, translate that data into our next year's production plan of oh, whoa, we sold,
buys okra.
yeah, nobody buys okra, or whoa,
Yes.
how much arugula did we sell? This is insane. We should.
So wait a minute. So people don't buy okra there either?
Shocker.
So, but what about eggplant for you guys? How do you sell eggplant on eggplant?
We sell a lot of eggplant wholesale.
Oh, okay.
So we
Okay.
also work with about 8 different restaurants in Troy and Saratoga Springs, and we used to work in Albany too. So that's been our main eggplant outlet. But we've also seen trends year to year. Like last year, we were selling tons of eggplant. This year, not as much
So we
retail.
put more in the production plan, and then this year, not an eggplant. We had a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
It was an eggplant.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the other thing that data gives you is when you sell things.
Exactly.
Because stuff's seasonal and you don't realize it until all of a sudden you have that data and the cash register and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
So this is a really beautiful, what are you using to build, what would you build this with?
Yeah, so our website is just on Squarespace, and I built the whole thing on Squarespace. So they have a commerce part of the website that you
Yeah.
can add on, and just using Squarespace. I've made some changes to the kind of standard format, but it's pretty simple. There are a lot of different apps and companies that market different CSA marketplaces or virtual farm stand things, but this has worked really well. We don't have to pay an additional monthly fee for it. And yeah, we constantly get feedback from our customers just saying that it's so simple, so easy. And yeah, I've had a lot of different farmers reach out to me on social media and emailing us being like, we want to do this. We're so tired of packing up and
Yes.
driving to the farmer's market. How do we create this? And it's so nice to be able to have all of this in your control, and also for customers that really want to support you to be able to seek you out specifically and order. And also for CSA members, it's a really easy way for them. Almost I'd say the majority of our CSA members, every week they're given the opportunity to like add extra things to their box through the virtual farm stand. And so it means they know what they're getting in their share, and they can add on like more herbs, more greens, whatever they want. So it's really been an amazing thing for us, and it means that people are coming to us, and then we have just local deliveries that take just a couple hours to complete. So it means we're not spending all our
Yes.
time in the car, which so many farmers spend so long, like packing up, driving long distances to a farmer's market, and that's valuable time
Yes.
you're taking away from your field work. And we
Correct.
really didn't want to lose that time. And so this allows us to just
Yeah.
harvest, pack, put things out, and then deliver really close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it makes it, like we're 5 minutes from the farmer's market. So we pack up, we've done a couple little pop-up markets. You pack
Yes.
everything up, you get yourself all in, it's that rush, to go. And then you only got 5 minutes till you got to unload the whole thing. And you just, there was a point where I was like, how can we make it so that people can come to us? This feels ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Having an on, we did, so obviously we did markets back in New York, and I literally ran the numbers. I've been to over 1,000 farmers markets.
Wow.
And I know it well. We know how to do, I mean, we wrote a course on it. We knew it so well. But unfortunately, I haven't updated the course for 5 years now because we have an on-farm stand, and we absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Now, the way you guys have it set up to sell everything online, I'm only going to talk to my team because there's something powerful there that I really think that we could really do it. We do some stuff online. At the beginning, we actually did more stuff online. But I think the other thing that we're really passionate about, people coming to the farm. So that's why we're passionate about the store, and we're investing heavily in other ways to get them to actually be on the farm. So, obviously there's people that can't, and they won't. So with the way you guys have it set up, you guys do a really good job with your vegetables too. I mean, your stuff is beautiful too. I'm going over your Instagram right now.
Yeah, we really wanted to set ourselves apart. And so the aesthetic of, both our working environment on the farm, everything's really tight and tidy. And then we spend more time than I think anybody, I was going to say should, but it's any more than people do, making things look, the way that we want them to. And it's really made the biggest of difference. That's why people keep coming back to us.
And again, like because people are pre-ordering their vegetables, they're not getting to like spend that time to pick it out, and I think a lot of people worry, it's like, what if we're not getting the nicest tomato or the nicest bunch of radish or whatever? And because we know that people aren't choosing it, we have to make sure it's perfect every time that they get it. So that's a critical component, is that if you do pre-sale, you have to make sure that your quality is extremely high.
I'm definitely seeing that degree coming through here in these pictures and the quality too. Yes, the artistic side. Yeah, it looks good.
What's made us also work so well is that we have very different skill sets, and so we've it's really made it so that us managing the farm together, we really complement each other, and I care about the aesthetics, but I'm also sort of more of like the efficiency. Let's get it done. We have so much time. Maybe we cut a corner here, there. And that's not the way that we do it. And that's because,
I never let any corner get cut, ever.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, okay. And you also, while running this farm, had a kid. So talk about that.
Yeah. It's been, it's been quite a change. It's amazing. I think we had an idea that it would be an enormous change, but to the, for anybody having a child who's farming, you're losing one person, and whether, we split time with our son, so together we're losing a full person, and so that's a huge thing that you have to negotiate with, like, okay, how am I going to get more staff on next year? How are we going to manage decision making? How are we going to manage caring for our child, because we don't have any family close by. So we care for our son 100%, just us. And it was interesting because, I was very pregnant through the season 2022, and I worked up until basically the very end, and that was extremely challenging. But we didn't know for sure that I was going to be pregnant that year, and we didn't have extra staff. We just had one other person working with us. And then we actually found having a baby on the farm was pretty easy for us. Our son his temperament was very low key. He was in a carrier a lot, happy to be out with us. We did that thing that, a lot of parents find isn't possible, but for some reason for us it was, where we were able to work with him on our back if the weather was right. And now having a toddler on the farm has been one of the greatest challenges we've ever faced.
Yes.
And it's been very much that, like, we can't expect to work when we're caring for our son. So, together we're just, each working part-time. And so it's been a big difference from starting the farm. The first couple of years it was just us, and before having a child, we only ever had one part-time worker working with us. And so it's been a big change, kind of forcing us to balance home and the work-life balance a lot more.
So how old is he now?
He's 2 now.
Just turned 2, so he was born in October, so the end of.
Okay, gotcha. Yep. Because we have a 3-year-old now, and I'm not going to say it gets any better.
Yeah.
Well, at 3, they are way more able to care for themselves, and she'll actually play by herself sometimes, which is fun.
Oh wow.
But adding the second or third gets infinitely easier. I will say that, because there is now a companion. They don't have the parent isn't the companion per se, and so they can, and the kids will come outside with me, and they'll just literally play in the dust at the end of the row, the little pile of dust, and that will entertain them for 30-40 minutes. So but you're right. I tell people never start a farm and then have a kid. we did that. Yes. So
I will say it's really amazing having a child on the farm, though, because he's extremely passionate about vegetables, which has been really cool to see.
Yeah.
He would just during the season just run out so excited to eat radishes and turnips and husk cherries and tomatoes and everything. He just wanted to eat everything, and to be able to watch him learn how to eat through the farm directly and see where his food was coming from, and learn what's edible, what's not,
what's ripe and what's not.
He would even that husk cherry isn't quite ready, or that tomato isn't quite ready, and it's been really beautiful to watch him build this relationship with food from such an early age and become such a foodie so early. I'm sure that will change. I'm sure
he'll be a teenager and hate vegetables.
Or So.
Well, it is interesting because all 3 of our kids have had an interesting journey with food. I mean, they'll start out and then their palate will change, and it's not like it's permanently changed. It'll just keep changing. So they'll like carrots, they won't like carrots, they'll like carrots, they'll love carrots. It's fascinating how that just keeps changing, and each child is different too.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah, I'll say with that too, now we're up to 2 full-time employees. Next year we're going to go to 3. For us, for the first bit of the farm, we were the farm laborers. We were doing everything, really had our hands in everything, knew the quality, knew exactly how we wanted things to be done. Now, having a kid and our priorities changing, our bubble expanding a little bit, becoming managers of people is a whole nother skill set that is, we've learned so much at Walker. I did some managing, which is very different than owning the farm and managing. I have a lot more empathy for how things were done on other farms now. You understand the decision-making process and understand a lot more. So, you know, we're very young in our management skills, and every year I feel like we're making some progress and getting better. But yeah, you know, we're now up to we'll be up to 3 full-time people next year.
That's awesome. I love that on your Instagram you have a category for baby carriers.
Yeah, so many people have asked us about which ones
Yeah.
we use that I decided to just put it there because I'm terrible at responding to DMs, and I was like, just put it there.
Well, and we had a video go viral last year that was me planting cucumbers with Levi on my belly with the carrier, and I think
Yeah.
that also spurred out a lot of interest in how and you know.
Here it is. 20 yeah, 775,000 views. That's so cool. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, but I didn't want to you talking about employees 2 to 3. Running a team is very different than doing the work yourself. Talk a little bit about what you have learned along the way, though.
You know, I think, you know, a management style of, you know, really getting a tune of the folks that you have with you, if they're able to learn by doing, if they need instruction, if you need to be there be right there with them doing it. You know, I think that we've really learned that, you know, you have to lead by example. I think we wanna participate in all of the tasks, and so it's not just us delegating tasks so much, but like when we're both out there, it's not, okay, you guys go weed the carrots and we're gonna go do something else. We try to kind of all participate in every bit of the task. I also think one of the biggest ways for people to feel involved is to just know why they're doing something, you know, so leading people through the beginning, middle, end stages of any project. It's, you know, we're going to go through and, you know, weed this arugula because then we're using the greens harvester. And then if we don't have to go through the wash to pick everything out, you know, just like everything down the whole way down the line, just so that people really get a sense of the whole process.
And the more you educate people, the less stupid mistakes people make.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because it gives them the space to think, you know, and then it's,
Yes.
you know, you got to give people the benefit of the doubt that they, if they're able to think and, you know, look and assess a situation, they're going to make a decision that makes sense, you know, if they understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's
Exactly.
really, really critical. I mean, we've learned this is just to invest time in training. You know, like we're so small, we have so many different tiny little tasks that we do, and sometimes you only do that task once a year, you know, and so sometimes it's like, I'm not gonna spend the time to train somebody to do this. But this year especially, we were like, we are gonna take time out of our normal schedule and dedicate time to training and just like really, really get it down with our 2 employees. And it really paid off. It meant by the end of the season, these were 2 new folks that came on with us, really lovely people. And they were able to do everything on the farm and do it autonomously and do it so beautifully. And it was from that early part of the season just really, really investing time in that training instead of just being like, oh yeah, do this along with us and this is how you do it. It was like, no, let's sit down, let's talk about the whys, I'm gonna watch you do it, give you feedback then, and let's then do it together, and we'll keep giving feedback, and then you're gonna do it alone, and then you're gonna have to teach somebody else. And so we really found that was an amazing approach. But again, it's like we're really learning about how to be managers, and I think it's one of the most challenging parts of running a farm. As you expand, you need to bring on employees, and that's like a really big task. Their well-being and their experience on the farm is all in your hands, and that's a big ask.
And there's something, you know, in the, you know, especially the scale farm there's a, you know, pretty idealistic image of what we're getting into, right? You're going to be out in the sun and everything's going to be beautiful, and it's not that way. And so it really takes effort and time to sort of bring us all onto the same page of like, it's not always, you know, eating strawberries and whatever, you know.
Yeah, today was the high of 25 with a 10-mile-an-hour wind, and the wind chill was 15 degrees, and we
Yeah.
were stuck outside, and the truck wouldn't start, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I find that when it's sunny outside, I typically am much more willing to give leeway with me not being with the crew because it's fine. But, when it's 40 degrees and raining, I feel like I need to be out there every minute with them because
Totally.
they need that person who's willing to. And because I've done it now for so long, it really doesn't affect me like I think someone who's brand new at it. I'm just, I have the right gear. I put it on, I can pace myself, but they're not used to it. So, it's kind of like when I went into the kitchen, we have an on-farm kitchen. I said, show me how to roll a bagel, or shape a bagel. I gave up halfway through. So I was like, this is great. You're good at it. I respect that.
I'm gonna go back
Power
outside.
to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back outside. I'll go cut arugula. It's training the team is, and I think you're right. If you get them from the start, the right habits, as you said, what you said earlier is so true, is that by the end of the season, they're just running and it's flowing beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you guys can't keep people year round because you don't have the year round. So do you have the same people try to come back, or just a new crew every year?
So our crew this year is coming back. Luckily, they both have winter work that they're able to do to come back. But yeah, it's a huge challenge to not run a year-round farm. Now that this year we purchased the property that we've been leasing. So it means that, that's a big question of, how do we offer employment for longer? We're building a couple different tunnels that will allow that, and we're looking to, have a 4-season wash pack facility that could allow us to employ people for longer because, yeah, we've had incredible, wonderful people. Only a few of them, again, since haven't had employees for that long. But at the end of the season, inevitably, it's like they look for work in the off season, and sometimes they stay with that other job. So
Can't
that's a
blame
big
them.
it's a huge challenge.
Yeah, and it's also different
farming.
here, just because, when we were in Vermont, there's an agricultural culture that's very seasonal. So I would do veggies, and then I would prune apple tree. I'd do Christmas trees, and then I'd prune apples, and then I'd sugar, and then get back into the veggies, and that was like the rhythm. Being in a more urban spot like this, that's not the culture, and so it's different in that way. There aren't a lot of seasonal short-term options for people.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and farming is hard work. I mean, you can't. It's absolutely, and vegetable farming. I remember Paul Arnold, my mentor, always told me that vegetable farmers had one of the highest calorie requirements of any farming type. Because, you think about it. If you're a dairy farmer, maybe your hardest thing in the summer is throwing hay, which is tough. I've done it. But, a lot of the time, if you're sitting on a tractor, but especially with the vegetable farming you're doing, which is the hand-powered, human-powered side, that is absolutely massive calorie requirement, and it's just a lot of work.
Yeah. Every winter we try to pack on. Well, you each often gain 15, 20 pounds over the winter, trying to eat as much as we can. And within a couple months of the season, we've both lost 20 pounds, and it's impossible to keep up with the energy demands of the farming that we do because. The first few years we were just pulling carts by hand, for all the harvest. We now have an electric cart, but everything we do is by hand, and it's extremely physically draining. That self-care aspect is critical. And another thing that we really emphasize on our farm is the people on this farm matter more than any of these plants or anything else. And if we don't take care of ourselves, then what's the point of doing this? And not that we're like masters at that and we have to learn every year how to do that better. But that's something that every year we strive to like, okay, how do we care for our bodies, which are our most important tools in this entire work? And how do we also make sure our employees are caring for themselves and their bodies too?
And a big part of that is just, working more on efficiencies and some technology, moving things from A to B is the biggest chore, It's just, there's so much of just moving material around. And so getting the electric cart, we have a little loader and a Kubota loader now that, is helping to make it so that we don't have to schlep as much. A lot of the things that when we started were the hardest things on our body, we're finding, the appropriate technologies to try to limit that.
We got the paper pot this year just to, like hand planting onions.
Oh, nice.
So intensive on our bodies, so, we planted all our onions in a couple hours with the paper pot, these small shifts that you can make. It's like, okay, that's really hard on your back every year. And if we want to keep farming for, another 30 years, we need to think about different either, efficiencies or equipment or technologies or approaches that can make that happen.
Yeah, when we were in New York, we were definitely a tractor-sized farm. We started out obviously acre and a half, and we were up to 5 acres with a walk-behind rototiller. So I mean, we were there. But then when we back to Ohio, we were doing human-powered size again. But that's just not me. Mm-hmm. I like my tractors.
Yeah. I know. You know what? If Levi ever takes over the farm, he's going to be the same because that's all he cared about.
That's awesome. Talk through a little bit of, in the last 6 years, what would you just kind of say like the biggest lessons of going from that large scale to the small scale would be?
Boy, biggest lessons. Tightness of the management, like we really, production plan, spending as much time as we can before we're doing, so we have to make the fewest number of decisions as we're going. I think has been the biggest sort of shift. On a larger scale, while it still can be tight, there's a lot more wiggle room. If you're working with a half-acre planting of brassicas, you can shift it over a little, or that other side of oats and peas is ready. These, whatever. This is like we've planned each bed, each 50-foot by 30-inch bed to be a certain way. It's much more difficult to have the wiggle room on this small scale. And then it's also, managing pest pressures. 50-foot bed, if you have 100 heads of broccoli and you let an aphid or flea beetle get out of control, then, that you don't have the 30% fudge factor that I would have always thought was, you could build in, which we do still build in a fudge factor because obviously you have to and things happen, but just everything is so much, you just have to be so much more tight.
And I think that's why on this scale, we've found that our diversity of crops have really insulated us from that because we have a huge woodchuck problem on our farm. People drop woodchucks locally at the baseball field next to us thinking like, oh, they'll have a great life.
Oh dear.
And I think it was our first year, maybe our second year, they came and ate all our Brussels sprouts in a single night. And it was
3 times. I mean, they grew back. Like, okay,
they grew back
when they were young.
Got them again. And so it's like, okay, we lost our Brussels sprouts. We don't have, many hundreds of, bed feet of this that like a larger farm would have. But we're growing all these other crops that we can use as items in our CSA share or whatever. So things are really tight, which means that losses are even greater, but diversity really saves you there.
Yeah. And you've done a really good job of filling out the farm. Like you have some triangles, which are, I guess, long season flowers is what it looks like in the picture.
Yeah. We have a couple different beds outside of our block rotation. And we have some cut flower areas.
But we've taken those, when Alicia got pregnant, I attempted to play a bigger role there, and it was just one of those things that I was not meant to do. And so we've taken a step back with the flowers, but now we're hoping one of the folks that we have coming back next year is really into flowers, and Alicia will be able to be more involved. So we'll bring that back in a bigger way. next year.
What is your fertility program like?
So we're on a very sandy loam, extremely well draining, and so we run through nutrients really fast. But so
Okay.
we get a really good high quality compost from up in Greenwich.
Yeah. Booth's
And
Blend still working?
East Blend, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
who we use. Nice. Yeah, they're fantastic. They've been really great. We just started with them this year actually, and definitely saw a difference using them.
Okay.
But so we make about 20 yards of our own compost, and then buy in another 50-ish. And then we use Crayer's chicken pellets when needed. And we run pretty acidic, so we're keeping a close eye on our pH. But because we have the farm set up in these blocks, when we're doing our soil tests every year, we're able to see which areas need what, and we're keeping also a close eye on our rotation and trying to manage things the best. One of the struggles we've really had here, in trying to make it a successful business, is really making room for the cover crops in our rotation.
Yes.
In the first few years when we were a little smaller in terms of our CSA numbers and stuff, we were able to do that mid-season cover cropping like pretty intensively. And in the last couple of years, we were like, oh wait, like things have really filled out. So we've actually added a couple new growing spaces just so we can offer that mid-season cover cropping, which is so critical in a sandy soil like we have.
Yeah.
Because that's really the key for sandy soil to hold on to that organic matter, is to have mid-season cover cropping. And then we cover crop a lot of the field with winter rye and over winter, and then we often will get some oats and peas down for some winter kelp.
Yeah. What does Troy do with all their leaves? Do they compost their own?
Yeah, so they have a big municipal compost. We generally have stayed away from that.
We've just found that there's trash in people's leaves. And we also don't know what people are spraying on their grass. We're pretty like phobic of that kind of thing. We do a lot of leaf collection on the property, like pretty intensively in the fall. It's actually a nice way to like keep work for our employees, where like the field tasks start really dropping off, but we have like these amazing oak trees around that are dropping tons of leaves. So we collect a ton of leaves, and then we have a really trusted lawn care company that we know that brings really clean, really beautiful loads of leaves. So we mix those leaves into the compost that we make, and then we also do a lot of leaf mulching during the season. We love it, especially for our pathways. We do intensive mulching. This season, especially, one of our kind of like time-saving approaches and fertility kind of programs was, we were just like, we are going to do some really heavy-duty deep mulching during the season. It helps with water retention, it helps with erosion, it helps build organic matter, it decreases, any cultivation that we need to do. And so this year, most of our farm, any long season crops or even like mid-length crops that are in the ground were mulched with either organic straw or leaf mulch. And it was so amazing.
Because you guys don't use any ground cloth, is what it looks like.
Yeah, that's something, especially I feel pretty strongly about. I mean, it's such a critical tool for so many growers, and I totally see why people use it, and it's so great. But I think, there's more research coming out about microplastics in soil and how detrimental that is. And for me, I just have this gut feeling that it's going to be kind of like the next like lead of our generation. And I am so phobic to, introduce that to our field. Again, our soil is super sandy, so mulching with, leaves or straw only adds fertility and
Oh,
organic matter
absolutely.
to what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, we grow our winter squash on weed mat. So,
Okay.
like it's not fully out of what we do, but if we can avoid it, we do. And
It's very
again, no
small amounts.
no judgment on farmers that do. It's such a critical tool for so many people. I'm just kind of like a purist when it comes to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Well, you're doing a great job without it, which is awesome. But yeah, I mean that is something we definitely do have a few customers which are starting to ask about that. The lead issue, asbestos. Right now their conversations are starting to really get hot around fluoride in water. That's definitely something that's coming up. So absolutely, yeah. I mean, there are so many toxins, and anything we can do to reduce it is great. With that, okay, so you do it in the pathways, stuff like that. What growing zone are you technically? Would you be considered like a 5A?
We just moved, now we were 5B, and we're now 6A.
Yeah,
Whoa!
Crazy?
last year they reassessed most of the growing map in the US. And so last year, most farmers, most areas switched,
Yeah.
specifically in the Northeast, and I think other areas as well. But yeah, we were pretty shocked because we were like, oh, we're 5B, we don't know what to think now. But yeah, so we're 6A now.
So we're 6B. So that blows my mind that you
crazy?
guys are so close to what we are. It is interesting because I do feel like Middle Granville, where we were, was in its own class of sub-cold compared to like Saratoga Springs. So we would start at the farm, it'd be frosty on the farm, we get to Saratoga an hour later, and they didn't have any frost at all. But then I think because we were 4A, moved to 4B by the time we left, but then you guys are 6B, so you're a full zone difference, which is amazing to me.
Yeah, and it again because we're in a more urban area, and even just the Hudson River, we're in this kind of weird microclimate where it's a little bit warmer here. So, we'll be like seeing what's going on farms not far from us, but because they're a little further from the Hudson and a little further from like the warmth of the city, we are a little warmer. We'll get that frost a little later. Which generally works out pretty well for us, but is interesting how the city impacts that and the Hudson River impacts that.
So when do you typically get your last frost?
Lately, it's been really pretty late in October. But yeah, I mean, I think the last frost date is like the 15th of October, something like that. But yeah, it keeps getting pushed back further and further, it seems like. I mean, the other sort of unique spot about Troy is it's the furthest point up where the tides come up onto the Hudson. And so we like really right at Troy, as it has a very unique little climate that stays, sort of works. There's warmth that comes with the tides and pulls things away, same with weather. But yeah, it's our season is feeling long, getting longer this year especially.
Yeah, this fall was very interesting. It kind of saved us. We got our strawberry crop in late, and strawberries for us is 25% of our income. And our strawberry crop went in 2 weeks late. We had bad plugs that came in. There's a big disease going around. It's a whole thing. But because of that, we had to dumpster 27,000 plugs, which was literally our plugs, which we had to dumpster. So we had to regrow plugs, which meant we were late. But because it was so nice and warm late, the plants actually look beautiful. So
Nice.
we're fingers crossed that next year we have a good crop. We need one. But yeah, it kind of saved us this year. But it's a little scary with how late it is staying warm.
Yeah, and here what's happening is it seems like in the spring, the last frost is getting more sporadic. Last year, very late frost wiped out all the apples, all the orchards. It was past any historical data when they would have had a frost. And so the spring is sort of the more touch and go right now, where it's hard to know if you're going to get that later frost in the spring.
Correct. And so that's very interesting you say that, because that's absolutely what we've seen. Is I don't necessarily think we're warming up super fast, although I think we are, because we are seeing those things change. But I think what we are seeing is much more swings in that. And I obviously I'm not here to solve global warming, because I can't. But one of the things I think is responsible for that is the massive decarbonization, or less carbon in the soil, that from where we used to have. I mean, you think about the prairies back 200 years ago, and they had 12, 15, 20 feet of topsoil, which would have been incredibly high carbon rates. And so that causes that less warming and cooling, which is what causes all this. It's one of those things which we, and I, unfortunately, in our lifespan, I don't think we're ever going to see a recarbonization anywhere near that, because I think it was, no, it's just not going to happen. If it's a new normal, we just have to deal with it.
Yep.
Well, we've got almost an hour. I really appreciate you guys' time. Any last thoughts before we go?
Let's see. Not really. I mean, the last little tidbit I'd throw in is, just going back to starting the farm on leased land. It really, for folks starting out, there's so many horror stories of people leasing land, getting kicked off, this, that, and the other. For us, it was such a great opportunity to start our business, to try things out and not have the burden of a mortgage or anything. To where now, when now that we just closed in September, now that we own it, we're able to now think like, okay, here's the master plan for the property. This is exactly what we need. We know the land in such a way. We're able to now really make informed decisions that, had we started the farm by owning it, we would have made so many mistakes that now we'd be regretting. Obviously, you roll with it and you do the best you can with what you got. But for us, I think for other folks who want to get into this, it is a really an avenue in. But obviously, it comes as pluses and negatives.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you on that. I think they're starting slow, and not having that doing things temporary at first can be a huge advantage.
Like our walk-in is it's an enclosed trailer. We started with just farmer's friend tunnels that we could take down in 3 hours if we needed to.
Yeah, everything was
movable.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you again both so much. You guys are doing a fabulous job. It looks beautiful. And keep up the good work.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.